Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Another amazing interview lined up. We believe this is interview something like 300 and something on our list, which isn't too bad of being here for 3 years. But this one's a really cool one because somebody that's been in the WWE very recently, as part of NXT Level Up. I think he even was in 205. It's a very start.
Was.
It is the one, the only, and I've been told it's Javi. Is that right, Javi?
I go by Javi now. That's correct. Yeah.
How are you? Thanks for coming. How are you? How are you? How are you? First things first, Abby.
I'm great, you know. Got a workout in today, and I'm primed and ready for this. I'm pretty excited. I know I have a lot of fans out in the UK, which is really
Mhm.
weird. It's not weird, but it's like it's interesting that I hit a note out there in the UK, which is something that I'd like to come out there at some point. But it's awesome that I have such a loyal fan base just so out far in the UK. It's really cool. I'm
Is
I'm
it
beyond
weird?
blessed.
Yeah, is it weird about that? Like, and obviously you've worked in WWE, you worked in NXT, and I know it's not, NXT maybe doesn't have the main roster reach as such in terms of where it was on television and stuff like that. But is it like, how does it feel when you do get that? Hey, I'm from the UK, I'm from Italy, I'm from South Africa, and I'm a big fan. How does that make you feel to know you've got those fans worldwide?
I mean, I'm blessed, and I would say a good 50%, like, you know, a good portion of my fans obviously are here in the United States, but I would say a good 50% are worldwide, being the first Colombian American WWE superstar, like that hits with a lot of, obviously Colombians because we don't have, like there's no name that comes out of Colombia or anything like that. And then obviously South America as a whole, same thing, for the most part, obviously there's, Stephanie up on the main roster and stuff like that. But for the most part, there are very few South American, there's not a lot of like lineage that comes up to it gets to the level of WWE. So I'm very blessed in that regard. And, obviously that attracts a lot of people from other countries. And I for what it's worth, the big body hobby stuff that I did and the core kid stuff that I'm doing now, um, really draws a lot of attention out into the UK and Germany. I have fans as far as Japan. Like I'm beyond blessed and very humbled that I have fans just pretty much and just about any country, which is very sweet.
It must be a great feeling for sure, and obviously, look, a good testament to your work as well, right? Because if you're a fan
I
of
would hope
wrestling,
so.
yeah, I
I'd
think
hope
so.
so.
I think so anyway. But look, it was nearly a year ago. It was a year ago on probably May 2nd, that you got the release. I'm not going to talk about that because look, it's happened and it's done. Um, but from what I remember, and I've listened to some of the stuff that you kind of a bit surprised by because you had like a creative meeting planned, I think for the Monday, you got released on the Friday. But talk to us about like the thought process. The call's finished, so you've been released. Obviously, there's maybe a bit of hurt, a bit of anger, a bit of confusion going on in your mind at that point. But how quickly does it dawn on you like, okay, I've got this. I know I can't compete for say 30 days, but how quickly are you starting to try and piece bits together in terms of bookings or trying to work out what to do next?
I think it was that same night, mourn for a little bit and then, like I've said in multiple interviews, my wife was more upset than I was at the initial moment. And we took our time for a second. We went to dinner later that night. My last meal as an employed man, so I went out and ate, and I got back and like, what? It starts now. I made the post, just be yourself. It's time to be yourself and move forward. I'm much like a shark in the sense where if I stop moving, I just get too much in my own head and stuff like that. So I have to keep moving. I have to, it was pretty immediate. I gave myself the rest of the day to just kind of do whatever. And then that night I was like, all right, we're starting now. It was like midnight, I'm pretty sure. It was after SmackDown or whatever it was. And I gave myself a resolve, I'm gonna be, my resolve was that I'm gonna be the biggest regret. That's the goal, that's the future, that's what's gonna happen. So from midnight, May 2nd, that was my thought process.
It was, yeah, obviously it must be again. I've never, hopefully I never will ever get that in that position, but I can imagine it was a bit of like, oh my, yeah, that initial feeling goes away, and it's like, right, kind of back on the grind, so to speak, in the sense of
Sure.
let's just get things. And that could be an interesting thing though, if you ever did make a return, wrestling's biggest regret, Javi, and then you come back that way. That'd be nice, right? That'd be nice.
Yeah, the best kept secret, that's for sure.
Indeed, indeed. But look, your time down in NXT, there was quite a few changes. I mean, you come up, I believe, you've done your stuff with Level Up, which we'll get into in a minute. But when you got there, it was NXT 2.0, and it was colorful. It was there pink, yellow, blue, and everything else. And there was a lot of like people, I would say criticizing it, but there was a lot of people having their. You've gone from like one era, which was the black and gold era, and then it
Mhm.
went to 2.0, and then it kind of and it started to go back, and now I think it's that kind of was silver and black. I think it is now, maybe, and it went to that.
Mhm.
Was there like times where they were saying to you, "Hey, look, we're going to make this change," or how did that process change from the 2.0 to the silver and black it is now?
It just kind of happens, it just kind of happened really. It was really weird. Like when I got there, it was 2.0, so there's a lot of like younger guys coming up.
Mm,
But then there were also, the vets that were on black and gold, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, like those guys were still there. So there was still like, and there's numerous many others, but those two stuck out to me. Um, and there were numerous other vets that were there that kind of helped lead the charge. Tommaso Ciampa comes to mind because
yeah.
right before him and Braun. Um, and they kind of led this charge moving forward of this is 2.0, but that doesn't mean things have to change drastically. And I know a lot of people get flack for the colorfulness or the wonky kind of storylines or whatever, but I to be honest, like not much changed. I really like, obviously between black and gold, like there was more of an air of like a little bit more levity to like the
Mm,
things that they did, but I mean, you look at the wrestling and you look at, you still had guys like the vets working with the younger guys. And I feel as though like the style still mostly kept the same. Obviously, there are things that they have to adjust for talent coming in
mm,
that were, developing. That's it's at the end of the day, like NXT wasn't viewed as a third brand. It was viewed as developmental. And I got there just shortly after it already transitioned to 2.0. And so I couldn't tell you what the reaction was from other people, but I do know there was this whole like people don't really like change.
yeah.
So even because even when it turned to white and gold, people were like, you know what, I kind of miss the Nickelodeon era, and and to some degree, like honestly, I like the presentation.
Mm,
You know, I didn't hate it, and if it was basically black and gold wrestling on the you know, colorful stage, I think it would have been the same. Been the same insofar as like the wrestling doesn't change. It's just in a colorful arena, and that's funny for me as someone who's more of a metalcore, core kid, punk kid kind of thing that likes the
yeah.
black and all that. But I like the colorful was bright. It was different. It's something that they hadn't tried or done before. And then when they switched to, I think it was white and gold,
Yeah.
it just kind of happened. Like there was not really much of like a hey, we're doing this. We just kind of threw on the a new coat of paint. Maybe the storylines were a little less colorful, but there was still some as semblance of that throughout the storylines and stuff like that. And I think like you know of the 2.0 guys, obviously there were a lot of names that came about. Like I I feign to say that I was like a 2.0 original because there was like a group of guys before that.
Yeah.
But I was kind of like in the second or maybe third phase of that. And I look back and I mean, it very much was to develop the future of the business. That's what that era I think was meant to be. And I think it served its purpose. I don't think, it's still it served its purpose. And I know a lot of people were like, but like, you know, if you're watching a developmental show, like you have to expect that people are going to try different things. Um, you know, that's how creativity happens. That's how creative flows happen. Something happens like, oh, we did something new. It's great. We did something new and it didn't work out. Okay, we're on to the next thing. So, um,
Hmm.
it's honestly about trial and error, and then how, wrestling, just like anything else, moves in trends. If it's trendy to be colorful, we'll be colorful. If it's trendy to be dark, we'll be dark. If it's trendy to like, all right, let's throw some pop culture reference, whatever it is, like
Yeah.
that's just wrestling. And you can't avoid that with anything, TV shows, music, so on and so forth. Like you just follow the trend.
I kind of got the impression that from my point of view, when I watched Black and Gold, they weren't really there wasn't a lot of developmental as such. If you look at the Black and Gold, it was like your Finn Balor's, your Adam Cole's, your
Absolutely.
champions, your Gargano, people that had already not saying it didn't have a lot of character to them, but they were predominantly coming from a background of like a Ring of Honor where it was pretty much pure wrestling. I don't
Yeah.
mean that in a horrible way, but like 2.0 felt like to me it was about building a character, more of a character based sort of stuff. And not, we still got that wrestling, and you still wrestle the black and gold way, but it was about more of a character based side of it. I don't know if that's something that people have picked up.
Yeah, definitely. And I do, I found that I do find that to be true. And there, I think like the white and gold is kind of like the mesh between the
Yeah.
two, where there's still, like this work rate type wrestling,
Mm.
but then there's also character involved, yeah, like more out there characters, because there were still characters in black and gold like you
Yes.
said, but the focus was definitely more so the work rate type wrestlers and all that. And like I said, if you look at it, it's very much a trend. When black and gold was going on, um PWG was a huge thing, old
Yeah.
school Ring of Honor, like that type of, I won't say old school, but Ring of Honor
Yeah.
was, like all that style of wrestling was in, and you know, it, I always say this, whenever I talk to anybody about wrestling or my career or anything. Wrestling is very cyclical. It always comes back around. Um, Wrestling at one point was just punches and kicks.
Mm.
That's the Attitude
Yeah.
Era.
Yeah.
And that era at some point has come back, and I notice it a little bit now. Like obviously it's not quite the same, but wrestling will go back to that. Wrestling at one point was the work rate type. It went
Mm.
away and it'll come back again. Like that's just it's wrestling is very cyclical. It all works itself out. And only the very only people who get a shot and people who learn to adapt will thrive regardless of that, because they're wrestlers that can go, and there are wrestlers that have characters, and then there are wrestlers that have both, that can do both styles. And I think those are the ones that are valuable. Those are the ones that, if given the opportunity, will shine.
Yeah, agree with that. I think you look at him now, people like Trick Williams, who's up there doing it, and he had a great character about him. He's got great work. Obafemi, look what he's done recently. I know he was a
Absolutely,
bit
yeah.
later down the line, but look what he's doing now. It's some incredible stuff. An average week at the PC. What was your kind of like average week, and how would it be a load of classes, like a promo stuff? How was your average week there for you?
Kind of boring, not boring, but like very scheduled. At
Mm.
least at least in the beginning, when you're really like trying to, you know, really grind it out. And especially like times change there too. Like I came in at the tail end of COVID,
Yeah,
so things were very different. I remember we still had to like get tested, come
yeah.
in early to get tested before we actually entered the PC. Um, and those days, every other week, because we didn't have the house shows at that point.
Hmm.
Those days, every other week would be a full week of what we called PC lives, which are
Right.
basically in-house shows for the
Hmm.
boys, for the office. Um, just to kind of like get reps in, because without that, it really would have just been uh TV on Tuesdays. And that's okay for like the guys that were obviously already on the show, but like for rookies coming in or for new talent coming in, the talent they want to develop, honestly, like the classes are great because you learn so much from the coaches. I started out with Robbie Brookside, who's a UK legend.
Yes.
Him, Robbie, rather Norman Smiley, like those are like the
Hmm.
two kind of where you start out with kind of beginner classes. And you learn so much from there. You learn so much valuable information. And honestly, half the time, obviously the wrestling stuff, doing the physical stuff in classes, um, very valuable, but you learn a lot more in those classes just listening to them. There's just so many
Mm.
stories and so many scenarios and situations that you would have never, unless you encountered it yourself, you would never really know about. Um, I just remember, talking to William Regal. He'd pop in for Robbie's class, another UK great, and
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with him for about half an hour, 40 minutes, and I learned so much just from that conversation. But we'd have our classes, and then on weeks that we didn't have those PC lives, we'd have promo classes on those weeks. Um, and then at one point we had those PC live weeks where we had two PC lives a day. And I remember going to Steve Carino, who booked the PC lives at the time, and I just asked him, "Hey, book me on every single thing, every single possible PC live you can possibly give me that I'm allowed to do, or
Hmm.
that I won't, whatever." Because I wanted to get good quick. I wanted to get better. I wanted to, I know a lot of people look at this as a job or career, which it is. At the end of the day, it's that is what it is. It's a business, but some people get into this for fame or for notoriety. I do this because I love it.
Yeah.
I do this because I want to be the biggest regret. I do this because I feel like I am in contention to be the best wrestler North America everywhere. That's what I want. And, to wrestle as often as I could was my intention in that, So I would wrestle 3, 4 times during the week. And then if I had a 205 live or then level up or NXT or whenever I got to that point, um, I would have X amount of reps just because of me getting the chance to do that, someone asked me the other day how many matches I had, and I forgot what the number I said was. They were like really shocked. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I believe like the second year I was in NXT, like somebody tweeted, I was like tied for third for the most amount of matches in NXT at that year. Um, because I was on how like it, this is a little later down the line when we had house shows, level ups, NXT. When I was doing the big body hobby stuff, for one, I requested to be on everything that I could have possibly, what they would have allowed me to do.
Mm.
I was on I asked to be on everything. Um, because I just want to be a workhorse. And I think that's something that, a lot of people that aren't, like, it's nobody's fault because fans aren't in the PC watching us, but I was an absolute workhorse. I mean, I still am, but like, in that, when I think back, like man, like I would have given my heart and soul to that, to because I still do, and that's how I view. I can't do this because it's so important to me without giving them 1,000%. So, that was the kind of that schedule. Like after later on when we got on the road, it would be classes just about every day,
Yeah.
maybe a promo class during the week. Maybe you do one PC live every other week, but then you'd get on the road. We'd have our Friday and Saturday shows, and I would be on those pretty often, and I would, and if I wasn't, I would be like, hey, get me on because I just want reps. Because that's what was important to me was wrestling in front of people. That's the only thing that matters as far as developing is wrestling all the time. Like you can only do so much class and you get so much information, but the only way you get better at actually doing it is actually doing it.
Yeah.
Messing up and be like, okay, that didn't work, or messing up like that didn't work with this crowd, but it works with that crowd. So you learn a lot of different things.
Yeah, definitely so. You mentioned Steve Carell, and I would have to admit that you wrestled his son very
I
regularly.
did. Yes, he's one of
Colby.
my favorite opponents, actually.
Um,
Yeah.
was that prior to neck injury or after? Because he got a really bad
That
neck injury.
was that was prior, yeah. That was
Prior, yeah.
June of last year, I
June of
believe.
last year,
I
right?
wrestled
Yeah.
him, yeah, and I wrestled him twice actually. I wrestled him in a hardcore match
Oh.
the night before, and then wrestled him in a just a regular match the next day. So it was a fun weekend.
Those of you that watch NWA will know Colby Carino loves jumping off of stages and whatnot, so it's probably no surprise that he had a hardcore match with you. He's a great guy. Just a quick one though. When you're saying you're learning, what was like your biggest takeaway? What's something that perhaps when you got in there and you're learning and you're hearing this, did something just like some bit of advice just constantly stick in your head?
Um, so I don't know if you or your audience is aware of like the hair story where like I had my hair cut before I got out, but if you're not, I'll shortly tell it then. But
Yeah.
basically, my first 205 Live was my first ever match on
Yeah.
television, and taking pictures. We rehearse our entrances, and John Laurinaitis was there. We do the rehearsals, and he walks over after I rehearse my entrance. He's like, "Hey, I'm not telling you have to, but life's all about choices." And referencing, I had hair longer than I do now.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think you'd look better with short hair and cut your beard, do this, that, the other, whatever it was. And for me, like my hair has had a lot to my culture,
Mhm.
being Colombian, my grandma was like Amazonian and stuff like that. There's a lot of cultural a lot of cultural things that are tied with my hair and stuff like that. So it was very difficult. But I did it because I was only however short I was there, and I wanted not only the office, but I wanted the boys to know that I could hang, that this is
Yeah.
something that I was serious about. Um, this is something that means everything to me. Of course I did and all that. So, anyways, it's not something I ever wanted to do. It's not something I planned or intended to do. And then I slowly after he left, I started growing my hair out. No, nobody in the office, nobody like everybody kind of knew and approved of me growing my hair back out. But anyways, at that time, one of my mentors, Terry Taylor, he told me everything in this business is a test. Treat it like such, and you will always pass. So everything that has nothing to do with in-ring work. It has nothing to do with promos. It has nothing to do with the actual actions. Everything to do around it. Everything in this business is a test. How you choose, if you're aware of it, you will always pass. Unless you, I guess, deliberately choose not to pass. But but like everything that you choose to do is a test. Everything is a test. Every moment, everything is a test.
Mm.
So it's in a way, that's kind of how I treat my life right now, or just in general. It's kind of like always thought about. I'm like, okay, this is a test of some sort, and I got to figure out the answer for this. So that's a big piece of advice that I've had, I took away.
Excellent. Don't you have to get permission to grow your hair and cut it though? Is that something that you have to ask?
I mean, I just grew my hair out. I just
Fair,
You
fair.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, the guy that asked me to cut my hair is gone. So,
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
and to be honest, I think, I won't say who, but I think a lot of the office kind of like looked at me and just kind of gave me a smile and like knew like we weren't going to ask you to do that. So, you know,
Yeah,
um,
fair.
and that's the thing. Like I have no issues with anybody there as far as like the office goes or anything because
Mm,
they're like I was very well perceived, very well liked. I
mm.
never caused any problems. So like all of them were like, yeah, go ahead. Like all of them kind of like gave me the Iggy of like so. Um, Usually, yeah, I think so. Like if you're gonna do
Mm.
something drastic, anyways.
Yeah.
Growing your hair out, I think, is a little different because it's more of a progressive thing, and like
Mm.
and I think there's some cool storytelling that you can do with that.
Yeah.
Um, kind of the longer your hair grows, the different changes. I always try to kind of like make that where I like try to change things because given like my hair is growing, so like I'm evolving to different things. So like I always try to think of like evolution and what the next thing is.
Yeah, fair. No, that's fair enough. Right, midway point, and this is my favorite part of the show when I start to change up a bit, trying to get you thinking maybe a little bit, maybe not. Some wrestlers have been really quick with his answers, some have taken a bit of time. So I have given you some of the questions that I
Mhm.
was going to ask you prior to this, but so I'll go with the first one. Now, everyone has their Mount Rushmore of wrestlers. I don't do it that way. I ask for your Mount Rushmore of wrestling theme songs. So for your top four of wrestling theme songs are what?
Definitely Edge's
Yeah.
Honest
Metalingus.
Day by Metalingus. Yeah,
Yeah.
Metalingus by Alter Bridge. I like Alter Bridge in general.
Mhm. Have you ever heard of
Another one.
their one called Coming Home?
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Because there was rumors that he was going to use that when he first come back from, I think it was the first neck one. There was rumors they were going to change the song to that song, or at
Oh,
least
really?
do
I had
like
no
a
idea.
or at least do a video package with that being the song. It never happened, but I love that. I think that song's really. I think it would have been a
Oh,
great
that's
song
dope.
to use. But yeah,
I had no idea. No, I didn't know that. So Alter Bridge would be
yeah,
one. Um, I like Kane's Finger 11 theme.
Slow Chemical.
Um, Slow Chemical, yeah, yeah. Bobby Roode's TNA original Off the Chain. That one,
Yes,
I feel like nobody mentions that one, and I think that one is such a banger.
it is.
Um, I just loved it. And the last spot's always kind of tough because like there's like 10 that jump to my head. Like I think of like RVD's
Yeah,
ECW, well both of his themes, but like
yeah.
ECW, like Pantera.
Hmm.
I think of Jeff Hardy's original theme or his solo theme in
Oh, no more words.
WWE, No More Words. Um uh Beer Money's theme was cool too. I really enjoyed
Yes.
that. So like there's so many different ones. To pick the last one, I would say probably oh shoot. That's this is an easy one. Not easy, but CM Punk's This Fire Burns.
Oh, okay, the old one, the older version.
Kill switch
Yeah,
engage.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Remember Randy
Randy Orton's
Orton?
original. Yeah, it was supposed to be Randy Orton's. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, for about a week. Yeah, that went. Yes, I remember. I remember that fully. Do you know what? A lot of the younger wrestlers that were not. I'm obviously I'm a tad older, but a lot of the younger wrestlers, you have that this fire burns when they always they when I ask them that question. So I love that song as well, to be honest. But I do like Cole personally. Right. So table for free. So look, you have had so many. You've obviously been in the PC, and there's been a lot of legends there, and a lot of the more experienced wrestlers, and so you can pick their brains. But with that being said, I would still like you to choose three people to have dinner with. Now, these people, wrestling personalities, they don't have to be wrestlers. They can be living, they can be past. But who is the three that you would like to have dinner with and have a bit more of a conversation about wrestling with?
So to give you some preface, a lot of the legends that I did encounter and a lot of them that I've had, deep conversations with at the performance and you know, um, like Booker T, CM Punk, John Cena. Um, he would deny it, but I call him a legend, Terry Taylor. Sean, Triple H, he would also deny it too, but A Train, like I have all these people to me, like I've already been blessed to kind of be under their learning tree and to really take that advice and really use it to my advantage. So I won't count them
Okay.
because I've so I'll do people that I've never had the opportunity. Never had the opportunity. Um so one for me, uh I mentioned him prior, RVD. Like I've
Yeah.
met him in passing,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of his career to me he was just a naturally charismatic and over guy uh, that I felt like I would benefit from learning from because he wasn't the big, like it
Yeah.
wasn't one of the huge guys that, always good and in shape, but not one of the guys that, people are going to be like, oh, he's, jacked up and all that, and I think a lot of people, being charismatic, his charisma essentially um made him that much bigger. Like you viewed him like, oh, this guy's big because of his charisma.
Mhm.
Um, there's one. Um, I know you mentioned this question to me, so I'm like trying. I would like, hey, well, you gave it to me. I'm like, that's a very good question. Um, Let me think here, because I know there's a lot of dead space here, so I'm trying to
Don't worry.
I'm trying to think one that you kind of mentioned him earlier as well was Edge,
Yeah.
um I think he's another one too. He's another guy with like his facials and his the ability he has to tell stories, um, I think is invaluable. And like you just can't put a price on that. So I would definitely love to have a conversation with him. And lastly, then this you definitely see it in my big body hobby stuff. And I've said this before. Very much Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Jericho was someone that, I looked at his WCW like Nitro stuff, and his early WWF Monday Night Jericho and all that, Raw's Jericho.
Yeah.
And I look at him in a lot of things, because, for one, obviously the wrestling aspect of things, but then also like I'm very much a creative person. I'm very
Yeah.
much um I'm probably a very athletic theater kid in a lot of ways. I do
Mhm.
music.
Yeah.
I think you spoke with some fellows not too awful long ago that I'm putting a group together with. My wrestling theme right now that I have is my voice and my music and all that. I had a buddy of mine from a local band. And this was actually my wrestling theme was supposed to be, I recorded it and had a demo, and it was ready to be sent to WWE. And when I did send it to WWE, and they just kind of gave me the, legal stuff, this, that, the other, and
Yeah.
I took it was while I was injured, I took the initiative to like I have to write all this. I have to, want to I have to come back and get a fresh coat of paint and be myself. And there's a whole story on what, like, how I transitioned or changed or what my thought process was there. But like between that and him wrestling and Fozzy and his everything else, like that is very much like how I view, like I'm like that's like the trajectory, like I want to rule the world in everything that I do.
Yeah.
I want to be so damn good at everything that I do that you just can't deny my impact. That's something that I very much view. That's definitely something that I look at. I'm like, that's where I want to be.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So, with my music buddies, you mean David Bartholomew and Will Scott?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yes, they are. They
Where
are.
we have a project going on. It should be well, I don't know when this interview will come out, but we have a project coming up. My original band, my work was Shattered by Hope. That's the band name that I have
Yeah.
under it. We'll have some stuff coming out, and we're very, very excited. We have a lot of good content coming out, and I think where my what I'm doing now as far as wrestling goes speaks to a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, very much for people that didn't get a shot, very much for people that don't might not be the golden goose, people that are, who people who don't have who are looked down upon for whatever reason because they like wrestling, because they like music. I kind of stem this core kid identity because I would go to these concerts and people would, hey, Big Body Hobby, I didn't know you liked,
Yeah.
Unearth. And I'm like, yeah, I love metalcore, I love this type of stuff. And people are, I didn't know, like, I didn't know you liked XYZ. I'm like, yeah, this is what I love. It's Big Body Hobby and this are two different, they're two different things. So and I'm like, you know what? I mean, there's people obviously relate to it. People obviously, everybody's been counted out, or everybody's had a situation where they've been bullied or looked out for whatever the case may be. There are a lot of people that are looking for some sort of inspiration, people that are, I definitely feel like in a lot of ways that I wear my heart on my sleeves and I tell stories on my sleeves. And a lot of it is, you know, I say this all the time, like, man, I feel like hard work doesn't get rewarded. I feel like no matter what I do, I just, it doesn't matter how good I am, in all these things. And I'm like, well, I know if I'm feeling this way, other people are feeling this way. And I think that, that speaks to my work ethic because I'm trying to do all these different things with this thought in the back of my mind, like, hey, there's no guarantee that anybody's gonna, give a damn about what you're doing, or anybody's gonna, all, so just with this band, with this music that we're doing and stuff like that, I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. A lot of people are going to speak to it. And, on the wrestling side of things, like there's so many people that aren't. that don't feel seen. There's so many
Mm.
people that don't get that chance in real life, obviously, but in wrestling, they're like, oh man, that guy is so similar to me. And it's definitely like I wouldn't call it a nostalgia act by any means because I'm only 27. I'm like still very young. That's a funny part because but it's kind of a throwback to like, old Avenged Sevenfold, Bullet for My Valentine, As I Lay Dying, Unearth, all those, metalcore bands, the emo kids that, wore have color in my hair, have fringe cuts or whatever. So it's definitely much a throwback.
Well, just as we do that, now would be the right time for a shameless plug for David and Will. But if you are a wrestler or a
Absolutely.
promoter or a referee or anything else, and you are looking for a new theme, David Bartolome Music or Will Scar with 3 R's on Instagram. Make sure you give them a follow. Go hit them up. They've actually done our theme. I just haven't got around to doing it just yet to putting it on the hitting the turnbuckle thing. But they've done our theme, done another good theme for those in the UK and in the US, and of course, are working with Javi. So now will be a great time to go and hit them up and get a new theme. Right, 2 more questions before we start to wrap up and do the last little bit. First one being, if you could have a triple threat match with someone from NXT Black and Gold and someone from NXT, say with White and Silver, who would the 2 people be that you could get in the ring with?
Is white and silver now, or is white? You mean white and silver, white and gold?
Now NXT now, whatever
Now,
whatever color
now.
it is now. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, okay. Um, so black and gold, man, there's so many because I think Samoa Joe, I think Bobby Roode, I think Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa. There's Finn Balor, all these people. Um, Man, that's a tough one. Okay, so I will say, because I've mentioned quite a few other names, I'm gonna have to say Adam Cole.
Mhm.
Um, I think, being in the position that he was in, something I always felt like, oh, given given where I'm at, I have to do all these things. And he kind of took that and said, no, I don't have to do that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
wrestle how I want to. And I think
Mhm.
that and he's so good, so talented. And I, look up to him and that mindset. So I would love to kill it with him. And then now, I have to think about who's there now. I don't know if this is technically now, because they brought him over from Noah. Um, but Inamura from Noah, I would love to have him involved some way, shape, or form. I know he's not there now, I guess, but
Yeah.
like it'd be cool. It'd be cool to have a throw down and have that. I think that would be a cool mix of styles all the way around. I always think I think one thing that I can say about myself, I am probably one of the most versatile wrestlers. If you want me to wrestle TV style, easy. If you want me
Yeah.
to wrestle indie style, easy. If you want me to wrestle, XYZ, I think I'm one of the most versatile today. And I think having that versatility with all three of those people, I think would make for a absolute killer match.
No doubt it would. And just need to say congratulations to 2 artists, formerly known wrestlers now, sorry, formerly known. One of them was known as Will Cruz. He debuted in NXT last week, and the other
Absolutely.
one was Rain Leverkusen, who's now Lizzie Rain over in
Congrats to
NXT.
them both.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've had the privilege of having Will Cruz on one of my shows that we done over the last couple. He's on 2 of them shows actually over the last couple of years, and he literally moved the ring with his speed and his power. That is no word of a lie. He had our champion in all sorts of trouble at that point. No doubt the sky is got the future is pro bright for you two. So congratulations on your debuts. But last question before we start to say wrap up and do what you're doing now. But if was there someone in NXT when you were there that perhaps goes under, maybe other than yourself, goes under the radar, maybe doesn't get the credit that they deserve, or they're not get the light shining on them that they deserve to have?
Absolutely. Aside from myself,
Yeah, of course.
I definitely think, and he's gonna kill it, whatever he does, is Dante Chen.
Yeah.
Um, Absolute great worker. One thing that I hate about wrestling are internet fans. because you view and to some degree it's not their fault, but it very much is. If you're put in a position to work a certain way or act, do certain
Mm.
things, like I am employed by, these three letters, wherever, whatever company that is. If you ask me to do it, that's my job. I said this earlier. At the end of the day, it is a job,
Mm.
and you know, I think that people don't realize that there are so many talented, good workers that are underutilized, un just undeniable.
Yeah.
He's one of them. Another one was Oro Mensah.
Yeah.
Both those two, and they're very very good friends of mine. Oro Mensah is another one who I think his style is so unique and so different. He wrestles so much differently than anybody else. Um, yeah, another one that does not get the credit they deserve. Is such a creative mind. Um, and lastly, these are all friends of mine, obviously, but I
Yeah.
also think they are the best. He's just the best. Is Joe Gacy.
Yes.
Who's another one who, obviously had a light shined on him with the Wyatt Six.
Yeah.
Um, but his bag is very, very deep. He has this deep intensity. Um, when wrestling. Just like there's just something different. It's just like a different beast when he's wrestling, and it's so cool. And I've enjoyed so much wrestling him.
Mhm.
I made a comment in a different interview. Like me and him would just like always be putting on. We go to Extra Ring and put on PWG style matches because we just had so much fun. We had so much chemistry in the ring. And obviously he's got 90 days as well, so he's got to, have to wait, but he's gonna kill wherever he goes, he's gonna kill it. And I'm very eager to wrestle all three of them at some point on the indies. I've wrestled them
Yeah.
on NXT in some
Yeah.
way, shape, or form, but like with no strings, no, nothing attached. I'm excited to just ball out with any of those three. So those would be my Mount Rushmore of people who are undeniable, but just, were very underrated is Dante Chen, Oro Mensah, and Joe Gacy.
With yourself included on the top four of that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm number one, but they're
Yeah. Of course you are.
I'm kidding.
I have to quickly.
I'm kidding, but
No, no. I have to quickly ask you this one because look, September time is Money in the Bank, right? And I have my ideas of who's going to win the men's and the women's. I'll give you mine in a minute. I'd like you to tell me who would you, not necessarily who would you want, but who would you like to see win the men's and the women's Money in the Bank?
for the men's, I think it's about time that LA Knight gets the ball.
Hmm.
I think if you just give him a ball.
Yeah.
Um, a sleeper for that one too. Um, Kit Wilson. Kit Wilson is a sleeper. I think obviously like on a personal level, like he's such a good guy. But on the wrestling level, the way he's been able to kind of reinvent himself and stay busy after Elton got hurt, and again, another phenomenal human being and wrestler in their own right. Um, you know, the way he's been able to reinvent himself and just connect in such a way that's, I think back to like, not to make this myself, but I think back about Big Body Javi, and at
Yeah.
some point it was so not bad, but so like I was so funny or bad or whatever you'd see on TV that it endeared the fans. Like at some point, people wanted Big Body Javi, and at some point,
Yeah.
it was so heelish that people enjoyed it. And it's the same way with Kit Wilson. Like
Yeah.
like man, I can't stand him, but he's just so funny and fun to watch. So LA Knight would be a pick, but I think Kit Wilson would be a sleeper. Um, and then on the women's side, I think Chelsea Green would be a phenomenal choice.
Oh yeah.
I think she's another one that is, very, very sweet for one, but also just just excellent at just any role that she is given. She just excels. Um, so I think Chelsea Green would be another one that I would like to see win. I always have to be careful whenever I say her name because there's a band called Chelsea Grin, and whenever I say Chelsea Grin, I say Chelsea Green, and whenever I say her name, I say Chelsea Grin. So it's like I always get it my tongue tied.
I'd agree with you on the women's one. I think that Chelsea does deserve it, and it's kind of following on that with that because of the character, and I just think this guy would play. He's just kind of made for Money in the Bank the way he is, and that's Dom Mysterio. I would just love it just because of
Mm.
the way that he could cash it in more than anything else, because you know what he's like in terms of the way that he portrays himself. So Dom's my one, but Chelsea Green is definitely on my women's list. And
Dom is definitely a solid pick. You know, I would be happy with seeing that.
yeah, definitely so. Right now, look, you've been doing a lot of work outside of well, since you've been released from NXT, you've been doing a lot of work on the independent scene. Two names in particular I wanted to bring up because you've worked Sinner and Saint for TNA Explosion. I did watch that match because we're big fans of TNA here. It was Sinner and Saint. They're a tag team that, like, I feel that perhaps TNA we should really be seeing more of in TNA. Did you enjoy working them when you done Explosion?
I absolutely working with them. I know that day was had a lot of moving parts. Because there was like a lot of there were different things that were
Yeah.
supposed to happen that day. Um, and it ended up being that we were going to work Sinner and Say, and they're just they're a great tag team. They obviously they have great chemistry with each other, which is always like that's something that as a tag team is always hard to find who you gel with. Like anybody, you can throw anybody together and be a tag team, but like to have chemistry and to be as fluid and move as well in the ring. Um, they are very, very underrated, very, very good. And I enjoyed working with them. You know, I wrestled. It was me and Jake Painter versus those two, and I think all four of us did a very good job. I enjoyed it. I loved getting a chance to do business in the ring with them, and you know, I certainly don't think that it'll be the last time that you see me in the ring with either both of them or one or two of them at this, however it works out. Um, because I'd love to work them again. So they were very fun. It was a very fun match.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly was. I can quote that because I've seen it myself. I thought it was great on TNA. The other one was I think just a bit before that. And you wrestled a few other Brits by the names of James Drake and Zach Gibson, former NXT stars, of course, and of course Isla Dawn. It was you, Carolina Cruz, and Gabrielle Eros. I think it was
Mhm.
on a Ring of Honor Club, I believe at the time. But
Yeah, yeah,
does it
yeah.
excite you now? Because obviously, look, we've seen like obviously Ring of Honor, that's part of AEW, and TNA is doing some great stuff, and NWA that you've worked in New Mexico as well. You got a victory against Ricky Rebel, I believe his name was,
Mhm.
during the Hard Reset show. But when you see things like AEW, NWA, TNA, there's MLW that are doing great stuff, does it sort of make you think, hey, look, there is this, as you say, I know it's still three letters, but there is a life outside of here where you can come down here and just have an equally, or if not more successful career in those other three-lettered companies.
Absolutely. And I think I view myself as obviously someone who's underrated, obviously, but I think back and I'm like, man, my entire I'm driven by, being the version of myself that I see myself as or that I'd like to see myself as. And if you only watch 2.0 Javi, like you would
Mhm.
naturally think that there's not much there. And I get that, like I had one match where they gave me the ball to actually do things and obviously like and shout out to Axiom as well. But like, we knocked it out of the park. And I look back now, I'm like, oh, I'd change this, that, I for myself, like I look back, like, man, I'm having better matches now. But like there was only like chances and opportunities are very sparse. Um, especially when I feel like, you know, you're told to wrestle a certain way and all that. I
Yeah.
think now the types of matches that I'm having now, um, having absolute barn burners on top of storytelling. And that's going back to what I said earlier. I think I'm one of the most versatile, one of the most balanced, versatile, I think is a better word, wrestler today. Being able to work TV style, being able to know, be cognizant of that style while also understanding, hey, there's a bit of thrill, bit of excitement, let's turn up the dial. And I think, whether it's AEW, TNA, MLW, NWA, whatever the case may be, um, you know, I think as much as it is an exciting time for me as a wrestler to go out and kind of have a little bit of freedom. I think it's just as exciting for every single one of these companies to have me as a free agent and to look at me and be like, man, we could do some magic with that guy. That guy understands crowd. That guy understands this, the XYZ. And I think I'm in a very good position because I am open to I'm open to being a workhorse for anybody. That's the anybody that grabs me, picks me up is going to have a workhorse, is going to have a bona fide main event star because that's given the opportunity, I think you'll see the purest form of a man when I'm able to get the chance to shine through. I something that Terry Taylor, and I'll wrap this up, I promise, but something that Terry Taylor always mentioned to me, like, and it didn't necessarily occur to me when I heard it. He's like, you guys don't know anything about suffering, and that's why the business is what, like, and at first, like, yeah, okay, Terry, and I think like, man, I've suffered a lot, at the time, 20 odd some years of my life. And then the last 3 years between injuries, between that feeling of, give me the ball and then getting released, boy, was he right. Cause I feel like now you view my matches, you view what I do and the storytelling that I'm able to portray, given the suffering that I've gone through, given all the hardships that, the not fair shot that life has given me. And like I said, the purest form of a man is shining through when I'm given the ball. So I think it's an exciting time for me, but it's just as exciting, if not more exciting, for any of these three-letter companies to be looking at me like, man, that guy really has something. He understands, and he wears his heart on his sleeve. Because like how you see me now is how I am in real life. Like
Yeah.
I don't, I wrestle and I come home. I don't, I chill with my wife, I chill with my dog, my cat. I'm a very, that's what we do. That's my life. And obviously the music stuff. Like entertaining is my life. When I come home, like I just, I love hanging out. I love talking. I love chatting. I'm a very, easygoing guy. I don't have that sort of thing. So I think wrestling is, you know, who you see now as Javi, and what runs me right now is wrestling. That is my lifeblood, and that's what pushes me forward and propels me forward.
Brilliant. That is awesome stuff. Right. As we wrap up now, Harvey, where can people find you on social media? If you are available for bookings, how can people reach out to you?
Absolutely. All my socials, either on X or Twitter, um, Instagram, TikTok, I believe Facebook too. At Core Kid Hobby, CORE as an Apple Core
Brilliant.
Kid Hobby. We also are starting our band page. It's Shattered by Hope Band. You can find that on Instagram where we're setting up everything, all the socials as we speak right now. But you can follow that anywhere. And then, reach out to me on any of my socials, or if you want my booking email, that's the hobbybooking@gmail.com. As far as where you can see me, I don't know when this interview will be released, but I'll be in Houston this weekend, the 9th, for Reality of Wrestling. I'll be in Florida this weekend for Florida All-Star Wrestling, the 16th of May. Um, I'm reading through my calendar right now. I'll be back in back in Connecticut for Blitzkrieg June 27th for the Luau. And I don't have my entire calendar right in front of me, so there's more dates that I have up there that I have yet to announce. But I have so many things coming up, and I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere as much as I can be. I'm not home for longer than 2 days at a time, so especially the last 3 weeks. So um, you can find me just about anywhere. And then if you enjoy watching me play streams, I'm also on Twitch. Every typically, if I'm not on the road, every Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm streaming on Twitch. Also, Core Kid Hobby.
There we go. Make sure you're getting booked. UK tour is needed. for sure.
A lot of like I said, a lot of my fans are out in the UK, and I always as you know, Will and David are
Yeah.
from over there, so I bust their balls about how you guys what you guys call things, what you guys pronounce and stuff like that, and it's a good time. I'd really like to try beef Wellington. Never had that in my life, so
Yeah, you missing out. I should have done that thing with you on here, and sometimes do that when I do like when I have the Australian wrestlers on. I do. I actually done it with Diona Perazzo. Actually, I gave her a free what we class as controversial foods. You either love them or hate them, and whether she would eat them or not. And yeah, one beef Wellington wasn't one, but it is very very nice. But you have to have like your beef. It comes out very red when it even if you cooked it correct.
that's okay with me.
That's
I
okay.
like it like that.
There you go.
So I yeah,
So,
I've never had it, so I'd love to try it.
well, there you go. Beef. So I'll tell you what, book Harvey and get him a beef Wellington.
That's
We
right. Give
can
me
get
beef
them.
Wellington.
We can get that happening. But Harvey, it's been great having you on. Thanks for coming on. But before I quickly go, Ignite Wrestling battle lines are drawn. July 12th is battle lines. The general manager CJ Carter comes out of retirement in a six-person tag team match against the Rebellion. CJ's partners will be decided, and of course, our turnbuckle champion Chris Aries. I call him the Comet because he smiles like we see the Comet every 2,000 years. So he will be defending, making his second defense of our championship opponent TBC. Could be Harvey. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
Who knows?
Guys, tickets will go on sale very, very soon. But Harvey, honestly, it's been great talking to you. A big thanks for you taking up so much of your time for talking to me today. And we'll get that 2026 tour underway in the UK very, very soon, shall we?
Hell yes. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all, guys. For Harvey, you've been Adam Cousins. You've been watching the Hit the Turnbuckle podcast. Until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe. Good night.